All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited to run through this tech overview with all of you today to talk about recruiting for roles in tech. We've got a great panel, a group of panelists who are current second years who are in the midst of their internship. So I'm grateful for their time that they're sharing with us today. So please, as we're going through these slides, please think of questions that you have and be sure to put those in the chat or you can ask them at the end. But we'll definitely have plenty of time for you all to ask your questions of our panelists. So let's get rolling. So just a quick schedule update of where we're going today. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of just tech recruiting and the state of recruiting in tech right now and provide you with some information on where Owen students have gone in the past. And then we'll talk about some resources and things that you can do to prepare for the fall and recruiting. And then we'll turn it over to our lovely panelists. So for introductions, my name is Kathleen Rawl. I'm one of the MBA coaches along with Emily and Sandy and Courtney. You're welcome to meet with any coach throughout your time at Owen, but we all also have kind of industry specific preferences. So I am the coach that works with students interested in pursuing careers in tech. And then my colleague Heather Yaki is here today as well on the employer relations side. So Heather, would you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Heather Yaki of as MMN, and I'm so sorry, Kathleen. Y'all, we are just preparing, and I tell you, what was in our minds. Kathleen, my colleague, Kathleen, yes. As she mentioned, there's a coaching side of the house, and I'm representing employer relations today. Specifically working with companies in the tech industry.
Great. Thanks, Heather. And then we have a wonderful group of student panelists as well. I think all of them are here except for Tatiana's running a little bit late, but do y'all want to introduce yourselves very quickly, just so you can put some names with faces and kind of think about questions you might have to ask. So Sirhan, could you introduce yourself to us, please?
Sorry, hello. So I was just trying to make my technical connections work. But anyways, hello. So my name is Sirhan and I am currently interning at Amazon. I am originally from Pakistan. I graduated in 2020 and I was working in Levi's in the operations space earlier. And then I moved over here to do my MBA. My majors currently are strategy and operations and analytics at the Owen School, and obviously doing the Amazon internship in California.
Great. Thanks, Sirhan. And Chris, could you go next, please?
Sure. And first, just wanted to thank you, Kathleen, for allowing us to be here today. Happy to see you guys as well as Sirhan, Abdullah, Tatiana. It's been a long summer, so happy to be back and doing some Owen things. So hi, everybody. I'm Chris. I am originally from Long Island, New York. I studied finance and math at the College of William and Mary for 4 years. And then after that, after graduation, I returned to New York City and went to a firm called Virtu Financial, where I worked. Virtu Financial is an electronic trading broker and global market maker for anybody who's unaware. And at the firm, I was part of this management training program for the 4 years that I worked at Virtu, which was a great experience because I had exposure to different product and functional groups through the firm. And then after some time, I felt kind of towards the end of my time at Virtu, I was starting to get a little pigeonholed. I knew that I was interested in tech and consulting in general in those industries, and I was interested in kind of facilitating a career pivot. I thought that one of the best ways to go about doing that would be to apply for an MBA program and accelerate my career in that way. So I went about doing that. I ended up at Owen, and I've just had a great time here. I know one of the major things that kind of stands out about the Owen program is that it's a bit of a smaller cohort size. And to be completely honest, that was a little bit daunting in the beginning for me, just because it was so different and unique from a lot of other schools that I was looking at. But I can honestly say it's been an incredible experience so far, just being able to build real relationships with everybody else in the cohort. Just kind of like speaking towards the panelists, I've already had multiple classes with Sirhan, Abdullah, Tatiana over the time, and I know you guys have Quant Camp coming up. Sirhan and I were in the same group way back when. So Yeah, it's been a great experience. And before I forget, I'm currently at SiteLogic as a market research and tech consulting intern.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And Abdullah, could you introduce yourself, please?
Of course. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abdullah. I am going into my second year at Vanderbilt Owen. Previously had a background in mechanical engineering and worked as a robotics engineer at Amazon. I can echo everything Sirhan and Chris said as well, but just a little background on myself. Coming into my MBA, I was always interested in tech as my field eventually. I did look into recruiting for consulting in the middle as well, and just wanted to let you know that the Tech Club, whether it's the Tech Club or Owen, there's a lot of resources set in place to help the incoming students embark on their journey. I'm currently at Amazon as a TPM intern. Currently working with their cloud and AI team, particularly cloud integration and AI expansion over here at Seattle. So any questions regarding whether it's tech recruiting, Amazon, Microsoft, feel free to reach out. We're lucky to have y'all.
Great, thank you. And then I think Tatiana's running just a few minutes late, so I don't see her on just yet, but we'll have time to introduce her. She'll have her introduce herself on the back end of the slides. So like I said, if questions arise while we're doing this presentation, please drop them in the chat and we'll make sure we get to them by the end. So hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll just have a better understanding on what tech recruiting might look like, some companies that might be of interest to you, and starting to think through maybe a gap analysis of what skills you have and what skills would be needed for some of the main roles in tech. But I think even in our panel, I think I want to highlight just the variety of roles within the tech industry, right? So we've got representatives from operations. So Sirhan and Tatiana in their Amazon Pathways role are definitely more in the operations space. Chris mentioned he's doing a little bit more strategy or consulting and even market research, and then a little bit more on the technical side with Abdullah. So I think there's a lot of things represented here today, and hopefully you'll see that that's the case too when you think about recruiting for tech. So these are probably quite obvious to many of you, but I think something I want to highlight today too for you is to think about looking at position descriptions heading into fall recruiting to just kind of see what skills are highlighted on those position descriptions, what you might have, what might be highlighted already on your resume, and what you might need to lean into a little bit more, what skills you might need to think about really developing in Mod 1 and Mod 2 as you really get into the recruiting cycles. I think, a lot of these are obvious, but of course the tech companies are wanting someone who is not only understanding the technical side of things, but also interested and excited about that side of things as well. Innovation is huge, flexibility, right? A lot of these products that you might be working with are very new and cutting edge, so the problems might not have been addressed before. So it's a little bit being comfortable with ambiguity and being able to pivot is a really important skill to have as well. Communication, of course, and also just collaboration. So especially for those PM roles, being able to work cross-functionally is essential. So you'll see some of those things highlighted throughout our conversation today. I wanted to highlight a few things from a session a workshop I attended earlier this summer, just about the overall kind of tech space. If you were paying attention to tech in early 2023, this graph might look familiar to you. Hopefully it's not super surprising, but of course that was when all of those large companies were having massive layoffs. So I think the key takeaway from this slide is that we're trending in the right direction, and I think there's like a silver lining here, and we're kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. So layoffs are certainly slowing, and I think there's more of a positive outlook, I think, for tech recruiting, which is good. Another thing I think I want you to think about with this slide is just, I think everyone in their mind, a lot of students, when they come into tech recruiting, are thinking about the the FANG companies, the key players. So, I think this slide indicates that hiring is shifting a little bit more towards more startup or even, smaller companies too. So I would say don't knock those off your list immediately. Of course, there's more opportunities at the larger companies, but I think you can see here the trend is those opportunities exist across the board. So, don't be afraid to look at smaller companies. And I think this is where networking really comes into it too, and kind of staying on top of what's happening in the industry. And then I think, again, with this slide, with hiring and open positions, again, we're trending in the right direction. You know, there were obviously a lot of openings after the massive hiring that happened during the pandemic, and that has certainly shifted with the cuts and the layoffs. But I think we're kind of trending in the right direction here. So lots of positive news, I would say. You know, of course, we don't know where this is headed, but I think the data points are showing us that we have a lot to be excited about. And then the other thing just to keep in mind too is I think some of the more traditional titles, don't be afraid to look at, or I would say, I would encourage you to look at positions that are speaking to AI opportunities. That's of course going to be a skill that you'll need to highlight and think about and be prepared to answer interview questions for, because you need to be using that in tech. So I think maybe just consider, I think when you're thinking about position descriptions, looking with keeping AI job titles in mind, I think, because that is certainly trending in an upward direction. And so this is kind of, I did this last week with the marketing folks, but I do think it's helpful as you're heading into recruiting to really do kind of some reflection and think about what skills you have, what skills you might be missing for these position descriptions. So I think the largest number of roles that OWYN students will recruit for would be product manager and program manager. So I just copied some text from, you can read this on your own time, copied some text from some position descriptions, but I think you'll see a lot of the skills that we already highlighted. So critical thinking, collaboration with stakeholders, analyzing large data sets. So nothing too shocking here, but I do think it's a good practice for each of you to kind of go through and think, what are the skills that I have, or are there any gaps on my resume, and how can I address those between now and when I'm recruiting? So really thinking about how you might put your best foot forward. But with the product manager position, you're really thinking about, you know, I'm owning this one product, and how am I going to develop it? How am I going to launch it? How am I going to improve it? So kind of thinking about those differences is important ahead of the process, I would say. And similarly to here, this is a program manager. I think this was a Google program manager position description that we pasted on. And I think, again, lots of similar skills that we talked about. So a good exercise to kind of think about as a product manager or as a program manager, kind of thinking of like the what and the why of that product, and thinking about strategy and kind of the roadmap of where that product is headed. So, you know, again, I think something that you can do now before things get too crazy with QuantCamp is to start to think about how your resume might line up with some of these position descriptions. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather now to speak to the tech track from last year.
Sure. So the tech track has kind of evolved over the years. We used to travel, you know, to the Bay Area, but that became a bit more than the current students wanted to do, just based on their budget limitations. And so last year we experimented a little and did a trek to Amazon, and we're hopeful to do something similar this year with a couple of local companies. I think there were even some folks who were on that trip who, you know, took a little bus ride over that are on this call today that might speak more to just getting exposure to different companies and culture and being there versus always hearing about it either virtually or in an information session here at OWYN can be super helpful. So we're hoping to have this type of engagement sometime this fall.
Great. Yeah, so stay tuned for more info on that. Thanks, Heather. A couple of resources I wanted to run by you just so that you can kind of prepare for recruiting in the fall. And I'd love for any current students or incoming students, if you have resources to add to this list that have been very helpful for you when kind of thinking about the tech industry and kind of staying on top of trends. But Rocketblocks is a interview prep tool that you will all have access to for free as OWYN students, and you have access to that in 1220. So it is sort of a couple of modules and math prep and mock case interviews, mock interview questions. So a lot of resources in there that you can kind of do on your own time, but Rocketblocks you all have access to at any point now. It's in 1220. Learn, Educate, Discover is a podcast. It's very popular in the tech space. I think there's a lot of really solid interviews on there from tech industry leaders at the biggest companies for you to kind of start to think about the different roles and kind of opportunities and trends that are happening as well. Louis Lin is a speaker that we bring in every year and he'll present on some interview prep tools, and he'll do a workshop in, I think it's October this year. But he has a book, I think his resources are great, but his product manager interview book is great. And I highly recommend it if you're kind of going that route. And then the Tech Brew is an offshoot of the Morning Brew, which is a daily email. I don't think the Tech Brew is daily. I think it might be once a week. But it's, I think, a helpful way to stay on top of things that are happening and kind of get news bites in a small, quick 5-minute email, very digestible each week. So if anybody else has anything to add to that list, we'd love to see those in the chat, whether you're an incoming student or a current student. But I think we can crowdsource for that one. And then this is a list, if you haven't already, in 1220, there in the resource library, there is a career guide for incoming MBAs. And if you haven't had time to click through that yet, please do that before you arrive on campus. There is a list in there of the last 5 years of Owen grads, where they did their internships and where they had their full-time offers, along with a lot of other data that you kind of filter through. So it's a great way to kind of start to explore possible jobs and roles and look for alumni that you might reach out to. So this is just a quick snapshot of the companies that our students have gone into in tech in the last couple of years. But I would definitely encourage you to take a look at that list if you haven't already. So I think just with challenges to expect, there's a lot of the obvious ones on here, right? Like a lot of you are transitioning to back to school for the first time in a long time, perhaps, or maybe moving to a new city in Nashville, or maybe it's a new country for you altogether. So a lot of things to think about with time management and just getting acclimated in terms of recruiting. There's a lot going on, a lot of things competing for your time, a lot of recruiting events. And then sometimes with tech roles, there's a lot of specific or technical knowledge that's required for the interview. So there might be some additional time spent on interview prep. I think we've seen a trend towards interviews being a little bit more intensive because the hiring has slowed. And so those hiring managers want to be very specific and make sure they find the right person. And that usually means maybe a longer interview process, or more technical or more difficult. So just something to be prepared for. And then I think Heather can kind of speak to, you know, what is out of our control in terms of tech recruiting and how it's just a little bit different from other areas of recruiting for other industries.
Yeah, I think probably when you think about consulting and investment banking, there is just this, you know, timeline that has just been established over the years. And what we've seen with tech is that it has gone, you know, it used to be extremely late and still is, parts of it are. But what I think we've noticed the most is that it's kind of anytime. So, meaning it can stretch early. They can kind of do what I would say sometimes more of just an active trying to see who's interested, and then they're going to dip back into that pool. You may have, you know, applied in August and you hear something in February. So they tend to drag things out. Maybe they won't be talking to you until February. But as far as you being an applicant and you not knowing where you stand with a company, I think probably the most patient folks, you know, are on the call today, who recruited tech, because it's just sort of can be this situation where you're very, you just don't know. You have, you know, eggs in a lot of different baskets. And I think that's the way to go though with tech, is to apply if it's early, apply if it's late. But know that your timeline might look quite different from your peers. And I think it's fair to say, and maybe the panel would want to, you know, comment on, yeah, it didn't look as, you know, it wasn't just this linear thing that was happening to me.
Yeah, I think that's helpful insight. Thank you, Heather. I am here curious to hear the panelists' insights on this as well. So I think it is something that we just is definitely in that bottom section out of our control a little bit. So thank you for sharing that. So just a couple more kind of next step action items before I turn it over to our panel. But if you haven't already done your resume review, please make sure to do that. We'd love to have all of those completed by the time orientation starts. So the first step is to get your resume in the Owen template and then schedule an appointment in 1220. Super easy, it takes about 30 minutes, but very important for you to do before you arrive on campus if possible. And then just kind of some big picture things here for achieving your career goals. And then I want to turn it over to our panelists, but early prep is super important. So make sure you're updating your LinkedIn profile. Like I said, scheduling your resume review. Also be comfortable and confident in 1220 and know how to use that resource really well, because you will be in it all the time. So take a look in that resource library, like I talked about. August 1st, which is tomorrow or sometime this week, is the day that you will transition from being an incoming student in 1220 to a full-fledged, full access first year MBA student. So your 1220 will look a little bit different for those of you that have been in it regularly. You'll see that you'll have access to a lot more things and events to register for. So we didn't want to overwhelm you over the summer, but we will do that on August 1st. You'll have all access to everything. So make sure you're in there and feeling comfortable there. And then also, just don't be a stranger in our office. Connect with us regularly, show up, pop your head in, ask questions. We want to be a resource to you. There's a lot of resources available at Owen as students, so please make the most of them and do not avoid us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our lovely panelists. Tatiana has joined us. I know she was running late, so thank you all again for joining us. But we'll kick it off with you, Tatiana, if you want to introduce yourself. The other three already did, but we didn't want to miss out on hearing about your background and where you are now.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, I just came back from my work, so I was running late because of that. So my name is Tatiana. I'm a now transitioning into second year MBA. I'm doing my internship at Amazon as a Pathways Operation Manager in Charleston, South Carolina. Amazing place. It's just, I'm so excited to be here, honestly. So yes, Amazon is a tech company, but my role is a little less techy, even though it requires a lot of analytical thinking and data knowledge or understanding at least. So yeah, my background was in graphic design and art direction before. I was in Steve Madden and Cartier in New York, and now I'm here doing operations and telling everyone I love numbers, which is just like completely, I don't recognize myself anymore. What else? So yeah, super exciting. You will love Owen, you will love Vanderbilt. I'm absolutely sure about it because I love Owen, and it prepared me for my internship a lot. What else should I tell about myself? Like,
that's a great start. That's perfect. That's a great intro. So thank you all. Seriously, I know you all are very busy and this is the middle of your day and you're wrapping up your internship. So I'm so grateful for you all joining us today. And I do think because you have kind of unique roles within the tech space, I think I'm excited about the answers that you're going to share with our incoming students. So I'll kick it off with, and we can kind of go in whatever order, and please chime in whenever you feel like it. This is very informal. But can you just talk a little bit about your recruiting timeline? I know it was very different for all of you. So could you walk us through what that looked like for you? And I don't know, some of maybe the key milestones along the way, I guess.
Oh, I can continue with that super quick. So I'm sure mine was different from everybody else because even though I was applying to different roles in marketing and tech and all operations. And I applied to Amazon to Pathways Ops in November. And then I did my initial call with recruiter in December, beginning of this, or like mid-December. And then I didn't hear back until early March, actually. So I don't know, like it's different for all of us, but mine was pretty late. So I'm telling this for students to not be very worried if you didn't get your internship before, like, let's say mode 3. Because for me, it happened in mode 3, it happened in March. So I received like the invitation for the interview beginning of March. I interviewed like March 19th or something like that. And then and then the process like kind of kicked off super quick after that. I heard back on the 20th, next day. And then by Friday, the 20-something, 2nd, I was already placed in the delivery station where I'm at now. So after interview, everything happened super quick. But before I got to the interview, that like it was 3 months or something like that. And I only had a week to prepare for my interview. And whoever goes to Amazon from you, please reach out because I have all the materials necessary to set you up for success. And I got it from my peers and second years, or my peers from first year, and it really helped. And the biggest advice, communicate and share and reach out for help to your peers, because that's your greatest resource, because that's where you will get all your insights. And that's how I raised the bar at Amazon at the interview, and how I got my internship, just through communication and connection. Not connection, just like reaching out.
Sure. Perfect. That tracks with what Heather was saying earlier about that timeline. So you just never know with tech. So that's great. Thank you for that. And what else? What else would you all say about kind of your recruiting timelines? What that look like?
I can go in on that a little bit. So, like Heather said, it fluctuates. I think tech is one of the few industries where the recruiting starts with the first cycle and it can go all the way to the last cycle. So there's a lot of roles, different type of roles that do come about, whether it's HR LDP, a financial LDP. So there are different aspects of roles that come about in that cycle that are more heavy towards that particular month or that particular fiscal part of that fiscal year. But in general, tech recruiting happens throughout the year. And just to echo another point, tech just doesn't mean something very technical. Like you have to be a software engineer or have a CS background to end up in tech. I have that particular background, but doesn't mean that you have to have the same skills or background as me to end up in Microsoft, for example. There's a lot of transferable skills. There's a lot of other skills and other aspects that play into it. And we can go into that in detail if you're interested in a particular company that I work for. But in general, I think the idea should be to have the resume ready, talk to different people, understand the company, and the roles come up throughout the recruiting cycle. So just be proactive with 1220 itself. I personally, I applied, I think in September for Microsoft, and I heard back in December, early December, and I had my interview a week from that point, and I had my offer letter by the end of December. So once it picks up pretty fast. And we can talk about how the interviews go as well for tech roles, especially when it comes to MBAs. I won't get too worried about that, but I think the mentality should be to have a proactive approach and look out for job postings as they come up in 1220, because it does happen rather more spread out compared to some of the other industries that some other folks might be recruiting for, like consulting and IB.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sirhan, you want to jump in or?
Okay. Thank you. I just echo everything that Abdullah and Tatiana has said, because like Tatiana and I are doing almost the same internship, like in the Pathways program. She's in a delivery station. I am in like the first mile, where like I am in the crosstalk facility. So it's just that like we are both in the operation space, so I do echo whatever like she has said as well. For the recruiting timeline, I would say that the resumes, you keep applying like earlier, but you hear a lot later, like in probably in 3 months to 6 months time, right? And then like Microsoft, Amazon, all of them, like you have to apply for the you have to apply in like September, October. Like I applied for my Amazon internship in October, and I know like a lot of other people who also got Amazon Pathways, they also applied in October, even the product manager roles. So you have to apply really early, because the timeline for resume application ends really soon, but the interview timeline is comes after like 3 months. So I even heard back for like the on-screen interview call in December, and then after that my interview was scheduled in March, like the final interview. So it does take a lot of time, and the first person for Amazon interview actually heard in February, like after mid-February, even though they applied back in October. So the timeline is that it's like really long, but you have to be really patient, which did not come in my case, but because I kept applying in all other um, companies as well. But you should be really patient with that. And still work on yourself, like personal development, because a lot of like a lot of like applications are and like tech interviews are mostly behavioral as well. So focus on that while you are waiting to hear from the companies.
Patience is very important. Great insight. Yeah. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, and I'll just jump in quick. I'll definitely echo a lot of what's already been said, so I don't want to take too much time on it. But one of the big things I think I wish I knew a little bit more about before coming to Owen and really pursuing tech is just the complicated nature of the timeline for tech recruiting in general. You've heard it throughout all the panelists, and Heather mentioned it, but it is definitely not as traditional, not as straightforward as, let's say, consulting and investment banking. Most definitely, you're going to be seeing applications all throughout the year, and kind of the same for me across, all the panelists. I applied to a lot of different roles early on in early to late fall, and then a lot of my interviews came in the spring, and some of my interviews for SiteLogic were in March, even into April, and then I got the offer. So yeah, it's a bit of a chaotic process, but I would just, like Sirhan said, stay patient with it. Try to keep an open mind all year round, especially even if you're coming in to Owen thinking that you are dead set on tech in general and dead set on maybe product management, program management, or anything else in tech, market research, operations, etc. Definitely keep an open mind, just because that the process is so kind of all over the place. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would add here. Yeah, keep an open mind. And also, this might come up in a later question, but I think one of my biggest pieces of advice in general is to take advantage of the time you have now. If you're not already done with your current job, or especially if you're out, or if you have any time before classes get going, you're going to be balancing academics, your social life, and recruiting all at once, and you haven't been in school, and most of you haven't been back to school in a while. So it's a little intimidating. But if you can get some of that stuff out of the way now and really like kind of hone in on your resume, I know the CMC does those initial resume reviews. So get some of that stuff out of the way and maybe create a list of companies you're willing to kind of keep on your radar and look at throughout the year.
Great. Great advice from all of you. Thank you. I did not put this in my list of questions for the panelists, so this is a surprise, but I actually would love to hear you all describe, maybe in just 2 minutes or less, like what your project is for this summer. What are you working on? Because I think it will highlight again, like the different type of projects that you might be assigned as an MBA intern and what that might look like I would imagine even the Pathways interns have very different answers here. So Sirhan, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So I am working in a crosstalk facility, and my project is to identify the bottlenecks in the process, which will help us to improve the throughput for the site. And this is something that, like, because this is a new site, that it has been struggling to improve the throughput. So I am trying to identify where I can increase the throughput. So my classes like operations management has really helped me, and like data analysis, which we took from Larry LeBlanc. So those classes have been really helpful over here to do like the analysis in Excel. Even though you're in like tech, you wouldn't think like you were doing Excel analysis, but it does really help because these are the tools that you are using to identify what is the fastest receiving rate for any process, and how we can scale up all other processes to achieve that rate for the whole process path over here. So this is my project. It's very technical when it comes to like operations part, but it's something that I enjoy because even though like Tatiana said that she's not a numbers person, I am. So I really enjoy all of that. And with Amazon, like my project, I have to do a lot of data collection myself. But with the tools that are already in place in Amazon, you already have, for some sites, you have the data already available so that you can run the analysis on that.
Great, interesting. Tatiana, what about you? How is your project different? I'm sure it's different.
Oh my God, it's so different. So I'm in the delivery station. It's a last mile. It's a very last node. So from our station, we deliver whatever you order on Amazon, we deliver it. And we have two parts of operations in this on the site. It's OTR, meaning on the road, and UTR, under the roof. So under the roof part of operation processes all the incoming, not even from Sirhan. There is a facility like fulfillment center between us, which receive the freight from Sirhan's building, and then sends it to different regions and different delivery stations. For example, we receive our freight from Georgia and North Carolina and North Carolina and Georgia, and sometimes Tennessee and Nashville. Nashville is a huge hub, actually. So, but anyway, we process it during the night, and then OTR team, they dispatch drivers, those prime vans that you are seeing all over town. So we dispatch it in the morning. And so my project initially was about, okay, I don't even know how to explain it super quick, but it was, so vans come in waves to pick up packages and dispatch and deliver them. So I had to work on the wave allocation if we're doing it efficient enough. But then a lot changed in my station. Our station is a very sometimes it has a lot of risk, and it has its own struggles. So I was moved to UTR. So now I work only night shifts. So I work 1:20 a.m. to 11:50, but it never goes to 11:50. It's usually way later than that. Yes, I know it sounds scary, but actually it's fun, because that's the fun part. That's where you, so now I don't really have a project. I still will write my white paper about whatever initial project was, but it's not this anymore. Right now, I'm just like running the all the processes as the operation manager, and because we are lacking many managers, and our area manager who's supposed to run shifts, they are not performing. So basically right now my site lead just put me in charge of all the operations under the roof, and whenever we receive packages, we sort them, and then we make routes out of them. So right now it's like very, very, very heavy managerial people management tasks. And also Amazon, they don't really give you tasks. You have to kind of like come up with stuff to do every day. And yeah, it's very data heavy. You have to look back at whatever performance you did in the past like weeks, and it's all weekly. And then you just do planning every night, like every day you do planning for next day, and it just day-to-day operation. It's so different.
Sounds like with your role, it's been a lot of adaptability, a lot of flexibility, and I think that
Flexibility.
yes,
Yes.
that's a key
You
thing.
have to be flexible for
Yeah.
sure. You have to be flexible. You have to be very proactive, I'd say.
Good.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Thank you. Abdullah, what about you?
Yeah, so very high level, because I'm under 3 NDAs. So I work on the from Microsoft side. So I'm on the cloud and AI team. So working on expansion of Amazon's cloud service, which is Azure, as well as ChatGPT. So I'm working on OpenAI platforms on expanding ChatGPT services across the globe. So a lot of cloud service and AI expansion strategy I'm focused on. And my particular project revolves around coming up with business strategies, how we can acquire certain services, and how we can expand globally to compete with our competitors like Google and other AI spaces. So that's what I've been mainly focused on.
Great. Sounds like it's got an interesting strategy component too, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And Chris, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to try and keep this quick and high level as well. just because I feel like I'm still working on getting that concise breakdown of the entire project down in my own head. But yeah, so just quickly what SiteLogic does, in case you're not familiar with the firm, unlike, you know, Microsoft and Amazon are those bigger, more familiar firms out there. But yeah, so SiteLogic is a turnkey energy efficiency and facility solutions provider. So, and they prioritize the implementation and the installation of different solutions. So think LED lighting, solar, EV charging, and a few others. More specifically, so that the company is divided into different business segments that kind of service different commercial building types. So hospitals, retail, multifamily, and so on. And then it's also broken down based on those solutions that we provide. So I'm a market research and tech consulting intern within the C&I consumer and industrials division, but under the EV charging space. So my project, I've had two kind of primary responsibilities, both for the market research side and for the tech consulting side. But first, I would just say in general that the entire project that I'm on is pretty open-ended. A lot of it is on me to kind of seek out stakeholders and get in contact with people around the firm to get information and kind of progress with the different deliverables that I have. But in summary, the market research side of it is, again, I mentioned I'm part of the EV charging vertical. So there's 4 different entities that are pretty important in that. And I'm learning a lot about the EV space, especially the EV charging space. They're, you know, very different things. And it's been very interesting, but it's been a lot of work. So I guess the 4 entities are the clients themselves. 99% of SiteLogic clients are real estate investment trust REITs. So we have that. And then there's the vendor for EV charging specifically, and EV charging makes up about, I think, 50%. It's a big chunk of the revenue for SiteLogic right now, which is, you know, so it's exciting to be a part of that. But there are vendors who develop the hardware and the software. Then there are players like us, SiteLogic, who do the installation, implementation of those hardware and software solutions. So we don't develop, like you might go out there and go to a parking lot in a shopping center, and you might see something, you know, an EV charging stall, and it'll say ChargePoint on it, or EVgo, or Electrify America. So we don't develop that, but we do the installation, and that there's actually a lot of revenue that comes with the trenching, because that's pretty expensive to trench through different material types. So, you know, asphalt and rock and dirt and others. And then finally, the whole crux of my internship is this 4th entity that is a little bit more popular these days, to my understanding, than it was before I joined, which is, you know, the financing partner, or we call them the 3POs. So there's different companies out there that are willing to finance, whether they're larger banks or smaller boutique firms, that are willing to finance EV charging projects and put down the capital, the CapEx, on behalf of the REIT, and kind of establish different financing models with that. So like a charging as a service model, and doing kind of like some subscription services. So pretty much to kind of like wrap this up, I'd say these companies, I guess, or, you know, before I joined, a lot of these REITs were financing the EV charging projects with their own capital. Now we're seeing a rise in the space of just more and more REITs and clients wanting to use financing partners, so that, you know, the barrier to entry is a little bit lower. So it's my job coming in here. We had a catalog, and we've been in contact as a firm with a couple different EV charging partners, or I mean, different financing partners, excuse me. But the market research side is finding, because it's such a new and nascent market, finding new EV charging partners, doing research on those, having conversations to kind of add them to our network, facilitating interactions between those 3POs, myself, the rest of my team, introducing them to clients as well. And then that whole tech consulting part is getting involved in the calls that kind of, where SiteLogic, we will pitch financing partners to our clients. So I kind of get involved with those calls as well. I can go into more detail, but I know I'm taking too much time here.
No, it's a lot of complicated things at play there, which seems like, again, a lot of skill sets required for that role, which is interesting. So I would love to hear just from maybe Abdullah and Chris now. Would you guys want to introduce the Tech Club, talk a little bit about, I know you're both on the board and in leadership there. What can these students who are incoming expect from the Tech Club this year at a high level, and how might they get involved?
Yeah, of course. I am the currently the president of Tech Club. I have Chris, who is the marketing VP, and we have a couple other folks as well. Tech Club in general is not only a resource for people who are interested in technical roles. Like I mentioned earlier, tech, especially when it pertains to MBA, encompasses a lot of different roles, right? Whether it's in operations, whether it's in strategy, finance, LDP, HR, LDP. But hopefully, we want to serve a platform for y'all to interact with the different stakeholders from these companies that we'll be able to bring on board in term for our info sessions, or a high level meet and greet, maybe a coffee chat opportunities that we'll have, just so you guys can learn about what is out there. Like I said, it's not only PMs, it's not only TPM roles. There's a lot that goes in a tech company. And other than that, it's going to be a lot of info sessions as well. I feel like there's a lot of ambiguity around tech recruiting in general when it comes to MBA. So hopefully we can serve as a platform to develop a better understanding, get a chance to interact with a lot of different people, and work on some of the skills that Sirhan alluded to as well, right? During your interview, whether it's your technical skills, whether it's your interpersonal skills, or what worked for us and how we can serve that as a form of a guideline or a template for y'all to be successful in your tech recruiting journey. Anything else, Chris, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered a lot of it. I definitely echo pretty much everything Abdullah just said. Just to kind of like just fill you in on how we got involved. I think I'm not sure exactly the date. I know it's very early on, if not at the end of orientation, the first or second week, there's going to be a career fair or club fair. So we're going to be there. Back this time last year, I remember going and just, knowing that I was interested in tech, and Abdullah and I were both interested in general. And we just, we saw the Tech Club and wanted to get involved. And so the goal this year is, again, like, speaking about what Abdullah was mentioning, is just to kind of clear the air on the ambiguity side of tech in general. It's a lot more than just product and program management. And then also we have a lot of plans in place. We're looking forward to some great attendance this year. We're thinking about a lot of different events, nothing, some things that are not finalized yet, but we're thinking about having different panels to kind of walk you through how to approach some of the, interview processes for some of the bigger tech functions, again, like product and program, but also outside of that as well. So yeah, it's been a great club. I'm looking forward to seeing what we do this year. And, it's been a blast already. I mean, we just started, we're, Abdullah and I just kind of took over with all the other board members, but looking forward to this year.
Yeah, I think the club fair is the first closing bell. So make sure you're there, get some free Tech Club merch or other free swag, always a good thing. So thank you both for talking about that. My final question for each of you is, if you could think of just one, because I know everyone has a lot to say, one piece of advice that you have for the group of incoming students around recruiting and kind of best practices, or maybe something, what is one thing you wish you knew last year at this time when you were in their shoes? What would you say to that, Abdullah?
Yeah, I think be flexible. Don't be too honed in on, I understand it's good to have your top companies, your top roles, and what you want to recruit for, but you can only control so much. And there's a lot of variability in terms of recruiting. So be flexible. It's okay if you didn't get the internship that you wanted. That's not end all be all. There's always full-time recruiting. So just be flexible and adaptable, and hopefully everything good will come towards each and every one of you.
Great advice. Who's next?
I can just jump in quick. Yeah, well, the first thing that came to mind was the exact same thing that Abdullah said, just keeping an open mind. I think that's really important with, going in for tech in general. I was interested, I mentioned I was interested in consulting as well. So I did a little bit of that recruiting. And honestly, there was some transferable skills that kind of came out of the consulting interview process that I used in tech interviews. So I'd recommend, just keeping your options open, being aware of all these different timelines, consulting, and, if you're interested in investment banking in general as well, and healthcare and so on. But to be, to give my own piece of advice, it's different from that. I would say two quick things. Check 1220 as often as possible. That's something I wish I did even more so in the beginning. I definitely started to check it almost on a daily basis, and, going into mod 2, but just getting a jump on that and getting familiar with 1220 in general is great. And then also just leveraging the CMC throughout the year is also really beneficial. Kathleen knows I met with Kathleen a bunch of different times throughout the year, especially closer to when I was getting, interview invites and preparing for those, but they're there to help you throughout the entire year. And it's been great to have that kind of support structure built into Owen.
Thanks.
I can go next. I think the best, I wish I knew, or I wish I wasn't afraid. So don't be afraid. Like last year, I didn't know what to expect. I wouldn't think that I will be in Amazon in a year because I was pivoting in my career. So yeah, don't be afraid of applying to the best companies ever, and the one that you think, oh my God, they're never gonna like hire me. No, apply, be confident in yourself because you made it to MBA. So, it's huge. You will definitely be able to make it to your dream job. And yeah, think big, don't be afraid.
Yeah. So for the advice part, I've already like mentioned it as well. Be patient with the recruiting process and be proactive. Like I think that's what Abdullah also mentioned. For the things that I knew beforehand, when the things don't work out, I went back to like restart the process all the time. Like restart. It's okay to restart again and again, because like you have to be proactive into like looking, okay, this doesn't work out, let's go into the other one, let's go into the other one. But like something that I would advise all of you, I think CMC also mentions it in like these calls, like to read Steve Dalton's book. I think they mention it, like which asks you to create a lamp list. It helps you a lot because we attended the session as well, and we whenever we read the book, you would identify like how you have to go into the recruiting process. It would really help because you would outline all of those 10 companies. I don't remember the exact name of the book. I think Kathleen would have it. Yeah, the 2 hour job search. So it would really help you to put like the list of all the companies that you are going to recruit for, write their timelines, whatever those are, and then finally proactively look for which one's application is going to be coming soon, and then apply for that. Have your resumes ready. That's all the advice that I have for you right now.
That's great advice. Thank you all. What questions do you have? Anyone else? What other questions? I don't see anything in the chat just yet, but if you have a question, we have a few minutes left, so feel free to unmute and ask it. Oh, here we go. Jordan says, what are some classes, electives you took during your first year that prepared you well for your summer internship, and or classes that you wish you had taken that you would encourage us to take in future months? So that's a great question, Jordan. What would you say? Sirhan, go ahead.
Yeah. So I already so there are like a few core courses which are really important, which help me a lot in my internship, like Tim Bogus's the first class that we took in the first mod, and then because it's really helped me to adopt my execution plan for the site. And then there is another class, operations management, and then we have Larry's 2 classes for Excel, and then basic analysis, and then finally like data analysis. All those classes are being offered, so definitely reach out if you need more help into understand into taking like these classes. But these are like some of these are already core classes, so you would be taking, which would help you for their internship as well.
Great. Would anyone else add any other classes?
Yeah, I think the core classes honestly serves as a really good foundation in general. And there's no class that you will think that just because you missed in this mod that you can't take it like next year around. So I think the core classes serve as a good foundation, but take Larry LeBlanc's Excel spreadsheet class. That will serve as a very good baseline for Excel knowledge in general. I think a lot of people will be using that during their internship.
Great. And yeah, we're looking at Friday dates for the tech trek, so it shouldn't conflict with any of the breaks. Will says, could you speak to the tech environment in Nashville? Were there tech job opportunities available here during your recruiting cycle, or were most of the opportunities in the usual tech hubs?
Yeah, so quickly on that, I think majority of the big tech companies at least offer a remote option depending on your role. It's very role specific, but I know Microsoft does for full time. I should clarify. For internships, it's most likely going to be in their headquarters or in terms of Amazon, where their fulfillment centers are if you end up in operations. But if you are on the PM side, it'll most likely be on their corporate headquarters. At least for full time. Now, good thing though, Oracle recently moved their headquarters to Nashville. So there's going to be a lot of tech opportunities from that front, local to Nashville. And I know Salesforce do a lot of remote internships as well.
Great. And then have you attended the national career fairs, any of you? Did you find them helpful for recruiting in tech?
I personally did not. I know there's a National Black conference that happens early in September. I unfortunately did not attend that, but I think for tech is one of those very that's the unique thing about tech. Yes, it's good to know somebody in the company, but networking is not as heavily emphasized as maybe some of the other pipelines, right? IB or consulting or even operations or strategy roles. So I didn't personally attend any of those conferences. If I could go back, sure. I think you do meet a lot of good connections and good people in those conferences. I just didn't happen to have the time to do that my first couple mods.
I would also highlight like in tech, you mostly have like online conferences as well. But I remember I attended Amazon and Microsoft online conferences that those are open for all schools. So definitely look out for those.
Yeah, I attended the Forte conference. Maybe some of you attended it this summer, last summer. That's actually where I learned about Pathways program for the first time, and and talked with Amazon representatives who told me about that program. So yeah, I would look into whatever is offered, just because you never know what you're gonna learn there. And you may think you are there for one specific reason and you end up just leaving with completely different knowledge, and it can turn around your recruiting process. So yeah, I would definitely advise to attend whatever you can.
And then I think our last question that we have time for here, Baxter asked, do you have any recommendations on cold emails or LinkedIn messages to ON students or alum at companies we're interested in? I'm sure all of you have done that. So maybe we just have time for one person to answer if somebody has a trick or advice on that. I would say generally though, students are going to be very responsive. Alums are going to be excited to speak with you, but anybody want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can quickly talk about. So I was actually looking for an alum, Kathleen. Remember when I got my Microsoft interview? So I think Owen alums are very responsive in general. So don't feel hesitant to reach out to them on LinkedIn, or if you happen to have their email address. There's only so many of us, right? So we're a very tight-knit community. Feel free to reach out. But I think a very good resource before alums is your second years. So utilize your second years first. That's your first line of defense almost, right? So reach out to them, learn about the companies. Maybe they can even connect you to somebody that they know. So that's like now you have a common connection. But if that's not the case, feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn.
Great advice, everyone. Well, we are at time, so I want to make sure to respect that. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, panelists, for being here. I'm so excited to welcome you all to campus in a few weeks. So enjoy what's left of summer, or as you're transitioning here or getting ready to move. I'm excited to meet you all in person soon. But thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.